at the moment, and the more we talk about the markets and the more you experience things as a business owner, I can't help now but kind of flip the blame a little bit. Government is so bad, like politicians are so bad, that to the point that they may as well just be corrupt. The quangos, the quasi autonomous non-government organizations, all these people in power who've not elected to be in power, all these people are destroying our economy, yeah, and them in the system are very much to blame. But I think at this point where things are so bad and so blatantly obvious in front of our face, that for the average Joe to not start educating themselves and doing something about it should now start taking the blame. It's kind of like it flips. Government gets so bad. Well, now the people need to actually start learning useful shit, not start watching fucking Love Island and all this other kind of nonsense that people distract themselves with. They need to start waking up to what's happening to the country, because we're employers, right? And we've just given a load of examples about ourselves and people we know who are deliberately trying not to employ people because of the lack of incentives to employ and the fortitude of modern technologies, meaning you don't need to. Then you've got the government spending absorbent amount of monies on immigrants and social housing and all this other kind of stuff, which is pricing out local people. Then you've got millionaires leaving, government increasing spending. Like it's crazy. The people got to know what the solution is. Because what I worry about at the moment is the system's going to break and people are going to go, this is why we should have taxed the rich. And because they don't get it, they're not educating themselves. They don't get it. The average Joe has to start doing something.
Yeah, that Daniel Priestley and is it Andy Stevenson is a good podcast to watch on the basis of people not understanding the inverted commas taxing the rich. And also what is a bigger problem is we're talking about revenue, fees, tax all leaving the UK. So we're talking about the pot of money in the UK reducing, but also what is a major concern is that pot of money has also got to go further than it ever has before, because we've got so many people coming into the UK that aren't paying tax, taking that benefit. I think something like £6.5 billion budget is on asylum hoteling asylum seekers in the UK, and that's increasing every day. So the rich are leaving because they're like, fuck this, I'm getting taxed. That £6.5 billion is probably propped up by 80% their tax that we're taxing them, and they're going. So where do we? What happens? So it's when Ryan says it's going to break, it's not only going to break because we've got less money being washed in the UK, but it's also going to break because the costs keep going up, and all of it. We've let more asylum seekers into the UK than we ever have in the last 5 years, and after 5 years they have right to benefit of becoming a citizen in the UK, so they then can go on to the benefit. So it's only going to get worse. We're going wrong in two directions. Nothing sustainable or stable at the moment.
It's managed decline. It's just been what it has been for a few years now. But then you bring Labour in to really exacerbate it, and we are in managed decline. They know the country's going to shit, and they're almost forcing it that way. And it takes the people that, like, we now, as in business owners, naturally build a reflex to free market incentives. Like, naturally we do that. Exactly what you've done, Stu. You've gone, all right, well, I'll fucking employ in the Philippines because I need to. The margin, like the free market margin,
It's half price. It's half price. I can get the same work done for half the money.
and you're doing it to protect your margin, right? Because that's your weighting function for survival and prosperity for your business, for your family. And that there is exactly how the government should be running. It should be protecting its margin at all costs. And that's what the government needs to be restored back to, running a surplus and protecting its margin by reducing responsibilities, allowing the free market to regulate itself with that margin. But the people need to learn that and understand that. People who've not ran a business before maybe don't understand it, but I feel like we're in the times now that we've never been in, like ever. There's no historic example that can assimilate to now. And we need the average Joe to understand basic business economics, because that's how the government works. And the more they don't, the more they're going to push for this tax the rich. And it's like, but where do the taxes come from? Because if the rich leave, there ain't then it's middle class workers that you're going to be footing that bill. And because the government's spending too much money, and it's like people can't understand that dynamic, and it's an obvious dynamic.
To explain that simple dynamic, when we first did a project with our builder called Richard, I turned to him at the end of the job once we snagged everything off. We always meet on the site and just to sort of almost reminisce about the pains of the project and look around the property and almost sign it off, but very informally. And the first projects we did with him, I was like, I like this guy. He's cost effective. He does a good job. I think we've got a good future of being in business together where I'm obviously the client payer, but he can help, support me with growth. And, now we've delivered over 30 projects. But on the first project, I said, did you make good money out of this? And he was he didn't know how to answer it because he was like, it's a bit weird coming from a client asking. And he was like, yeah, we did all right. And I said, well, I always want to make sure that you're making good money out of our project. So we've got a sustainable business model to grow and continue doing these. And he was like, yeah, mate, sounds good. And that was it. Simple as that. But if I was beating Richard up on his fees every job to the point where he couldn't run a business anymore, I've lost a good supplier in contact. So what Ryan's talking about is that knock-on effect that everyone's got to make money in the chain to have an economy. Otherwise, there isn't one. And then you start going, our plastic supplier's gone bust, so let's order it in from China. So it's all to support the economy.
It's circular. It's a circular economy. Employers do well, employees do well. And there's an old saying, I can't remember who said it, but and it's about essentially against raising taxes on the rich. And the idea is poor people don't get rich by making rich people poorer. It's an obvious statement, but that's essentially what we're going against. We're trying to make rich people poorer, and obviously poor people are just going to get even more poor because the opportunities are going to go, the jobs are going to go, the innovation's going to go, the risk appetite.
Looking at it from a top-down approach as well, but for me, it's so obvious they're going to go from bottom-up approach. So, inflation is a quiet tax, right? So you don't have to upset anyone. It's not voted for, and I think the stimmy checks that were done during COVID was an experiment, effectively, on what works or not. And it's just going to be so much easier for them to create the universal credit and to pay directly the people who need the money from the bottom up, who then spend it with the rich. The people at the bottom are happy because they're getting free money, as in everything they're going to spend it on goes up. The money they get spent is spent with the rich. They're happy. And it's just, that's really the only way that they can get out of this, is to print money. And then anyone that's got assets will increase, which is, it's just, it just gets faster and faster and faster. And this is literally the ingredients of hyperinflation, which is going to happen to the West, because there's no other way out. There's no other way out of this now. The people we know is that have left to Dubai and stuff. The people I'm following on Instagram, and we know people together. To me, none of them look 100% happy anyway. I mean, must be quite a lonely thing to set up a whole new world. And I think that the UK government know that as well. That yes, we might have a bit of a spike at the moment, people leaving, but the grass isn't always greener, and home is home. And I speaking about this last night is, that feeling of getting home and having your stake in the ground. He was saying, like, having a house and having an anchor is not a good thing. He likes to be more of a nomad and wants to go traveling and off in his plane and go around the whole of Europe and spend a few years doing that. But to me, my wife's a bit of a home bird. And I think if we've got a stake in the ground, we've got our own place, then I don't know if you would feel the same being abroad. I mean, it's horses for courses, right? People have different opinions on moving away or not. But I think the UK is quite privileged. We've got normally quite good economic opportunities. We've got, good education, healthcare. We're quite safe. We're an island, and I think they are playing on that. But they've played it for too long, and I think that now things are going to start breaking.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you go and subscribe to the Ground Up Podcast.